Hi, everybody. I'm Ricky Heller from rickyheller.com. Today, I want to talk about a question I get a lot. So, just as an example, I wanted to tell you about an email that I got from a reader, and I'm just going to read this. So, she was talking about having gone gluten-free, but she now feels that she still struggles with eating grain-free. She wants to go grain-free, and she still feels like she eats too many baked goods, bagels, chips, that kind of thing. And then she ended her email by saying, "Do you stay totally off the foods you are supposed to stay away from?" So that got me thinking about cheating on the anti-candida diet, because I get that question a lot. People say, what if I had a little bit of wine when I went out to dinner, or what if I just happened to cave in and I had a dessert when I was out with friends, or I just can't stand it anymore. I went and I had some chocolate. 70% is okay, right? What happens if I cheat? Do I have to go back to square one? And so on. So my answer to the question, is it okay to cheat on the anti-candida diet? No. Also, sure, yeah, if you feel like it, it's your body, go ahead. So I know that sounds a little facetious, but basically what I'm trying to get at is it really depends. And I think that's the wrong question to be asking. We should instead be asking, why would you want to cheat? And also, what are the consequences? Because cheating has consequences. If you think about cheating on your spouse or cheating on your taxes, there are consequences to things when we cheat. And so you're cheating, I think of it as cheating on my own health in a way. So I think it's important to look at the consequences of this cheating and then decide, is it worth it to you or not worth it to you? So there are three considerations that I would say you want to look at when you're thinking about the consequences. The first one is, how bad is your particular situation when it comes to candida? How bad is your candida infestation? And so, for instance, when you go to my book, Living Candida Free, Andrea Nakayama, who wrote the first chapter in the book, has developed a yeast assessment questionnaire. And if you run through all those questions, it's very detailed. And at the end, it's going to give you a score. And it's going to tell you, is your candida mild? Is it moderate? Is it severe? And based on that, you get an idea of what kind of reaction you're going to get. So, for instance, in my case, I had beyond severe. I had off the chart severe candida, so it took me a really long time to heal. But what that also means is, if you have a severe case, you've probably got a very large infestation. And that means, that's why they always, when you read about candida, you're told that you have to often do things beyond diet. Because the more candida in your body, the harder it's going to be to eradicate it. And the other thing to consider in terms of how severe it is, the more candida in your body, the more quickly it's going to reproduce too every time you feed it by cheating and by eating something sugary or with alcohol. So one of the statistics I read says that fungi, so candida is a form of yeast and fungi, they can reproduce up to 24 times from each cell. So each cell gives off 24 smaller spores of the fungus that are going to continue to grow. So that means you're doing a ratio of 1 to 24 every time you feed it. And I've also heard various estimates, but one of the sources I encountered said that candida can multiply, can double in just an hour. It's a very quick growing organism, and it also multiplies exponentially. So if you're feeding it a little bit and you already have a very massive infestation and it's a severe case, that is going to be exacerbated more than somebody who's just got a really mild case and there's not that much candida already in their body. So that's something to consider when you cheat, because when you cheat, you're feeding the candida rather than your health. The other thing to consider is, how long have you been following this diet? And not so much because that coincides with how much you're getting better, because that's different for each person. For me, as I said, it took 2 years to get better. Some people can be better in 4 months or 6 months if they have a mild case. But I think the longer you're on the diet, the more it's become entrenched in your life as a habit. And so it's much easier to get back into that habit if you do happen to veer off the path. So the longer you've been on the diet, you may or may not have improvements in symptoms, but things are working internally, things are getting better internally, you're establishing new habits, and you can return to an anti-candida lifestyle really quickly if you've cheated, and then you go right back to it. So in my case, for instance, I know now I have this routine that if for whatever reason I have a flare-up, I go back on stage 1, the really strictest form of the diet, for a week or two, and then I know things are going to even out again. And that's easy for me because I've been doing this for so long. I've been following an anti-candida diet of one form or another for like 15 years on and off at this point. So the longer you've been on it, I think that mitigates the effects as well. The third thing, and I think in some ways I'm coming to believe that this may be one of the most important factors, is what else is going on in your life besides the anti-candida diet that influences your candida. So for instance, there may be other factors that influence how well you do, such as environment is a good one, or stress in your life. If you are working in a toxic environment that is going to exacerbate the candida, then a little cheat may affect you more than someone else. If you are in an intensely stressful period in your life, I would say, again, that is going to affect you more than perhaps somebody else. One of the stories I tell about my candida when I first started, I'm a type A. If I know the rules, I'll follow the rules. I was so stringent on my anti-candida diet in the beginning. I followed it to an absolute T. I used to interrogate waiters and wait staff about what was in the food and could I get something just plain steamed vegetables when I went to a restaurant. So I was still on stage 1, and my husband and I went to Florida for a little vacation. Now, I absolutely hate winter. There are basically no words in the dictionary to describe how much I hate winter. So for me, a little jaunt to Florida, even though it was only, I think, 4 days long, was like heaven. I was in bliss, and I was so relaxed and so happy on that vacation. It was warm and sunny. And so, I was mostly eating steamed vegetables and steamed rice and things that I brought some almond butter with me, that kind of thing. But we had heard from someone of a restaurant down the road that was willing to accommodate people on a special diet. I was thrilled. So we went to the restaurant, and again, I went through all these questions and answers with the waiter, and finally he said, we have this, I think they had a special where you could choose 4 side dishes as your main dish. And one of them was a butternut squash and edamame hash, which sounded great. We went through the whole rigmarole of my asking him what was in it, and finally we established that there were no sweeteners, and it was olive oil. It was cooked in olive oil. It was very simple. Came to the table along with the other 3, and I was happily eating along. And about halfway through the meal, I thought, I know that I haven't had sugar in a while, and so things taste sweeter to me, but this tastes really sweet. So I called the waiter over and I asked him again, was there a sweetener in this? And he said, oh, no, not really. There's just a maple syrup glaze. So, not very much maple syrup at all. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. So I totally freaked out. And my husband, who is always a pillar of calm in my life, said, look, you already ate half of it. You're not going to get rid of it now. It's in there. Just relax. Don't worry about it. It's too late. Don't eat the rest of it, and you'll deal with the consequences if you have to deal with the consequences. So I thought, he's right. I went on. I enjoyed the rest of my meal. We continued with our last days of the holiday. And you know what happened? Nothing. There was no reaction at all. And in looking back, I am convinced that the reason I didn't have a flare-up was because I was so stress-free. Because subsequently, if I eat something that isn't even as bad as maple syrup, for instance, last summer when I had a little bit too much fruit in a week, I can experience a flare-up, and then I go through my back to stage 1 for a week or 2, and everything clears up. However, that time there was nothing, and I'm certainly not using that as a way to condone cheating on this diet, because I know that if I were to do that now, I'd have a flare-up. So you have to weigh and measure what else is going on. And I think that story also shows that we have to be very forgiving with ourselves. It doesn't mean you can go out and seek these kinds of things when you're on this diet, especially if you're on stage 1 and you're not supposed to have any sweeteners. But it does mean that things happen, and sometimes mistakes happen, and you need to forgive yourself as much as you would forgive someone else that you love. So put it aside, keep going, and that's what I would say. If you do have a cheat, again, I wouldn't, the question for me is more, why would you want to? So I would never knowingly cheat on my anti-candida diet. And that's actually the answer to my reader's question. Yes, I do always stay within the parameters of the diet. I never knowingly eat something that I'm not supposed to have, because why would I want to harm my health in that way? The whole purpose of doing this is for me to get healthier. And that cheat, it's not just a cheat out there in the ether somewhere, it's a cheat to my health. It is prolonging my illness and making it more difficult for me to get healthy. So my solution is, rather than cheating, is to create foods that I'm yearning that are within the boundaries of the diet. And that's exactly what I do in my Sweet Life Health Club, where we have 4 new recipes every month that are all egg-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, sugar-free for people on an anti-candida diet or any of those other restricted diets. And then the other thing that works really well with something like that health club is the community of amazing people in it, where if you do have a slip up, or you're just feeling like you want to have a slip up, there are people there who understand what you're going through and can help you and can respond and maybe commiserate or encourage or support you. So I would say that's another thing that you can do if you're feeling like you're going to want to slip, is find a good community of people to share with you and support you so that you don't end up sabotaging your own health. So I hope that was helpful. And if it was, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel, either up here, or if you're watching on the blog, there's going to be a link down below for you to subscribe. And share this with your friends if you think it will be useful to them as well. Okay, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time.